During the German onslaught into the Soviet Union in the summer of 1941, one target was the northern port city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. On the 20th of August 1941, a battalion of tanks from the German 6th Panzer Division was approaching the village of Krasnovardievsk, now Gatchina, in front of the city. Soviet opposition had been shoved aside. The Germans were confident. But what the Germans hadn't reckoned on was one young Soviet lieutenant who had conceived a brilliant ambush plan. Zinovy Kolobanov commanded a small unit of KV-1 tanks, probably the heaviest armoured vehicle on the Eastern Front in 1941. Thickly armoured and armed with a 76mm gun, the KV-1 was the tiger tank of its day, able to absorb enormous punishment while delivering knockout punches. The KV in its title stood for Klement Voroshilov, a prominent Soviet general and defense minister under Stalin. Kolobanov knew the German vanguard was coming, and he had carefully set an ambush. His 5 tanks were dug into a grove on the edge of a swamp. Only one road ran through the swamp, so Kolobanov knew that the German panzers would come from one direction only. The opposition consisted mainly of Panzer IIs and IIIs, armed with 20 or 37mm guns. But though the KV-1's main gun and armour was better than the German tanks, the Soviets would be massively outnumbered. It was a reverse of the situation later in the war, when technically superior but numerically inferior German tanks took on hordes of Soviet T-34s. Kolobanov's planning had been thorough. Each KV-1 carried twice its usual ammunition load. He ordered that only one tank at a time was to engage the Germans, so they wouldn't know the Soviet strength. Kolobanov had done everything he could to ensure that the German vanguard would be in for a rough time. He didn't have long to wait. The 6th Panzer Division's leading battalion drove straight into the killing ground. Kolobanov's gunner, Andrei Usov, engaged the leading German tank, brewing it up. The wrecked German tank now blocked the narrow road. The Germans that were following thought the leading tank had driven over an anti-tank mine and halted. But Usov soon disabused them of this notion by knocking out the second tank in the line. Kolobanov's KV-1 now knocked out the last German vehicle in the line, trapping the panzers in a death trap. The Germans, panicking, started driving off the road into the swampy ground, but the panzers had narrow tracks and became bogged down, whereas the KV-1s, with their wide tracks, coped better. The German return fire was extremely fierce. Kolobanov's KV-1 was struck repeatedly by German shells, but his crew kept pumping out 76mm shells at the panzer column. In an astounding display of accurate tank fire, the KV-1 proceeded to knock out 22 German panzers and 2 towed artillery pieces before its armour-piercing ammunition ran out. Kolobanov immediately ordered a second KV-1 into action. Each of the remaining 4 KV-1s each took a turn in the battle. Altogether, a further 21 German panzers were destroyed. Kolobanov's small force completely obliterated the panzer column. The final tally was 43 German tanks knocked out for no loss to the Soviets. Astoundingly, Lieutenant Kolobanov's KV-1 had taken 156 German shell hits without being disabled or penetrated. The KV-1 seemed to have been an early war tiger. In recognition of their gallantry, Kolobanov received the Order of the Red Banner and his gunner Usov the Order of Lenin. Kolobanov's last stand action helped thwart the German thrust on Leningrad and demonstrated just how good the early Soviet tank, the KV-1, was in battle. I hope you've enjoyed this tank story from the other side of the Eastern Front. If you have, perhaps you'll subscribe. Many thanks.